To order. Welcome to a special meeting of Nevada Irrigation District Board of Directors, February 24th, 2026. You'll join me to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Division 1.
Here.
Division 2.
Here.
Division 3.
Here.
Division 4.
Here.
Division 5.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll take public comment on any item not on today's agenda. If you'd like to comment either online or in person, we'll do that now. Any item not on the agenda?
Are we supposed to be doing anything with our video?
No.
She said it's automatic.
She said it's automatic.
Thank you.
Okay. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move. Second.
Anybody want to comment? Any clarifications? That's what I'm looking for. Madam Secretary, let's see, in public comment, anybody like to comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, Madam Secretary, you call the roll, please.
Yes, Division 5.
Yes.
Division 4.
Yes.
Division 1.
Yes.
Division 3.
Aye.
Division 2.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're jumping right into our main item of the day, and that's a workshop, water rate study workshop. Who's going to kick that off? Jennifer?
So this is the second workshop that we are having regarding the water rates, and we have our consultant Eric here again from Barter Wells. He'll be taking the preponderance of the presentation. And it's workshop format, so please interject as you would like or as you have questions before we get too far along. And then we did try to go through and answer and or address your questions from last time. So there's no voting that will be done related to the water rates today. We might try to obtain consensus on a couple of items so that we can formally wrap those up into a formal proposal for the board at a regular board meeting.
Did you mention workshop? We can just jump in anytime we'd like. Just raise your hand or shout it out. That goes for those online too. We'll try to pay attention to that.
Yes.
That, Eric.
All right.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me again. And it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Eric Helgeson. I'm a principal with Bartle Wells Associates. And I was the project manager on the rate study. And today we're bringing back overview of the study and then answering some specific questions that came up in the last workshop. And so I'll start with an overview. Just the purpose of the rate study is to ensure that the rate revenues are sufficient to recover revenue from rates that is enough to fund the district's operating costs, debt service, and capital costs. We also want to make sure that the rates are legally compliant, and a lot of that is governed by Prop 218, and that requires that rates not only not exceed the cost of service, but also be proportional to the service provided. The rate study process essentially consists of determining analyzing all the customer data, financial data, determining the amount of revenue from rates that's needed to make everything work, and then allocating that to be recovered based on how customers drive costs so that the rates are proportional. And then at the end, there's the Prop 218 notification process. So we're getting up to that point. Ultimately, the board will be deciding on if they want to authorize sending out notices of maximum rates or 218 notices. The 218 218 has a substantive procedural requirement where in order to raise rates, 218 notices have to go out. And those notices state the maximum rate that the board can adopt in each year for the next 5 years. And the notices must go out 45 days prior to holding a public hearing. And if fewer than the majority of the ratepayers submit protests, so if more than 50% of ratepayers have to submit protests to stop the proceedings. If it's less than that, then the board can go forward with adopting the rates that were noticed. We'll also include a administrative exhaustion procedure as well, which will likely extend based on the recommendation of your attorney to extend that process by a couple of weeks, but that will give essentially that process allows the district to respond to the 218 concerns raised by those submitting protests and have those responses submitted prior to the public hearing. And the substantive requirements of Prop 218 are what I stated before about not exceeding the cost of service and making sure that rates reflect, essentially, you pay for what you are receiving. There's proportionality in your rates and the cost of providing your service. So the district has 20,000 treated water customers, 5,500 raw water customers. Rates are the main source of revenue. So the district needs rate revenue to provide the service, and that rate revenue needs to be set at an adequate level to fund the district's operations, pay for infrastructure, and pay debt service. We looked at 2 different capital scenarios. Higher scenario, which has more ongoing repair and replacement. Jennifer can probably talk to that. And if you have more questions, but we looked at a higher scenario where there's a elevated level and then kind of which would cost about 140 million over the next 5 years, and then a lower CIP, which is more just the strictly necessary things, which was about $90 million over the next 5 years.
I have a question for that.
Yes.
On the lower CIP, what projects did not get done?
I will.
So would the board like to spend a little bit of time going through that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
That would be my
I
question.
organized it for everybody, so
Thank
it'll
you.
be easier to look at. Chris, can you help me pass these out?
Good.
Do you have additional sheets for anyone in the audience
Yeah.
that might want one? Okay, thank you.
We're gonna put L on the board.
Oh, good. Perfect.
So essentially. Oh, I can take-
Thank you.
have some.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Is this different?
Yeah.
There's 2 different, okay, thank you. This
Oh,
is-
thank you.
Oh, low and high, gotcha.
Did you find it, Rich?
What is,
I'm not a speed reader.
I'm gonna pop it up.
What's he looking for the bet?
He's looking for the bet.
He's looking for the bet.
No,
No.
not on here.
No.
No, it is not there.
Okay, well, let me explain about the BEP a little bit. So what is before you is the high and the low CIP. Chris, can you give me a low CIP? I don't know. And
What does yellow mean?
oh. I need to-
Good question.
Which way? The total.
Well, it's 2 pages.
Oh,
Thanks. There we go. There you go. It's near.
And thank you for bearing with us while we're kind of operating in a room we're not usually in.
there's that. Oh, there's the whole kinds of.
Oh,
pages.
Are you just sharing?
You think so? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go back there and push a button. Let us host again.
Yes. There we go.
Oh, you have yellow on there.
Okay.
What's the yellow?
No, I'll explain. Okay,
Oh.
so you have two spreadsheets. These are essentially outputs
I'll take
from
a
the
look.
model. These mimic essentially our 5-year capital plans that were presented to the board. Can you not hear me, Rich?
It'd be a little bit more up, yeah.
Okay.
You can move it towards.
So what I think will be helpful is to look at the low CIP. The low CIP is the spreadsheet that's shown on the screen. And also in your handout is the yellow, has the yellow colors on it. So the high CIP is consistent with what the board has previously seen when we did the 5-year capital project review. What the model does is, we've talked about before, is when you're establishing a rate model, we don't do just a rate projection for a 5-year period. We also do it for the subsequent 5-year period. So we capture a full 10 years. So staff took the 5-year capital program that was previously presented to the board, and then we started inputting it into the model. In order to kind of provide this high and low capital scenario to give the board some options related to rates, we did some moving around of capital projects. So one question I got is, the board is aware that in the annual budgeting process, we go through a priority scoring system that is based off of several different categories, and then each project is assigned a score. The score is then used to prioritize projects that are competing for money within the same fund. In this situation, we did not apply the scoring. The priority scoring is only applied to the first year of projects. We didn't go through the whole 10-year period and prioritize them all. And the reason being is that when you're establishing rates and making projections for rates, they are simply projections. So this is not a guarantee we will build anything in any particular year. In any particular year, we have to go back through the list, prioritize. Sometimes new projects get added. For example, something breaks, there's a new regulatory requirement, something loses priority and something gains priority. So this is more to allow for a calculation to substantiate the rates moving forward. So in the first category, capital equipment, there really isn't a difference between the low and the high scenario. The capital equipment calculations are based off of projected replacement of essentially percentages of the fleet. So we go through, we have a fleet scoring system, we look through this fleet scoring system, and then we make projections on which portions of the fleet will need to be replaced once they meet a no longer have a life cycle left, according to the scoring. So the infrastructure administrative also doesn't change. These are items that are typically regulatory in nature or have already been decided on by the board. So for example, the start charging stations, as we know, those are related to the CARB rules. ADA transition plan is a plan for accessibility improvements that all public agencies are required to have. But we have a little bit more work done to complete on Grass Valley headquarters ramps and stairs. The Tyler ERP is underway. As the board's aware, we have implemented payroll as well as the financial component of the ERP. Next, we have utility billing, and then we'll move into the work order system.
Jennifer?
Yes,
That's
sir.
right. I should have mentioned. Why does the ADA continue at the same cost out for 10 years?
An ADA transition plan is a allowable method by federal law to comply with federal accessibility requirements.
So it's not remodeling and putting in ADA features.
Yes, it is. So an ADA transition plan is developed, and what it does is, once it's developed, and if you implement a little bit of it every single year, then you're generally in compliance with accessibility standards. The idea being that it provides you some legal protection that a public agency with such large facilities and geographic areas such as ours, you can't be completely ADA compliant all at once. So in lieu of that, you have a ADA transition plan. It goes through each and every facility, identifies, and some of the projects can be big, like redo a portion of the parking lot. Some of the projects can be very small, like move the light switch down 2 inches or adjust the pressure on the door push bar. The transition plan, that in order to maintain compliance with the ADA transition plan, you have to spend money on it every year, and or it has to be a portion of your capital project expenditures every year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question, if I could, third item there on infrastructure, the Grass Valley headquarters and stairs is on there, but not funded either year.
And this is, well, and that's somewhat of a mistake, but it won't matter for the purposes of the model. Because if you recall, we just recently rolled money over from 2025 into 2026 to include, I think it was 75,000? Around $75,000 worth of additional work that needs to be completed under that project. So when as with the annual budgeting process, when you start an annual budget process, you essentially make projections on your year-end fund balance and your year beginning fund balance. And so from that standpoint, because it's not going to really move the needle on the fund balance projections. The business center roof is also in there, just it needs to be replaced, and then a couple of other minor things. And then going into treated water infrastructure. So if it's not highlighted yellow, it is consistent between the high and the low CIP proposals.
Gotcha.
If it is highlighted yellow, that means there's a difference between the high and the low CIP proposals. I thought this would be the easiest method for you to see which capital projects we are shifting.
Okay.
So I know and this meeting isn't intended to get into the nuanced details or decision-making related to any specific capital project. But for example, one item is a Lake Wildwood treatment plant under both scenarios. What you'll see is we put in funding for 26, 27, 28, and 29, 30 for this 5-year rate period in order to do more increased maintenance and repairs at the station until we would have enough money or bonding capability to either build the BEP or completely redo the plant. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then we'll kind of go through, we're going to hit on the big items because as we know, we talked about the 5-year CIP as opposed to getting into the detail of every item. But one of the things you'll really start seeing with the differences is some projects were either zeroed out, which means under the low scenario, we are not planning on doing a full rehabilitation or full repair, what this means is something could still break related to one of those systems during that time period that we would still have to repair. So instead of, preemptively doing repairs on a consistent basis, the low CIP is more of a fix things and band-aid it as you need it type of thing. Except for the items that we left in that we feel are critical. The low CIP is challenging because it does take off a lot of maintenance and repair projects that we should be doing. We're kicking the can down the road, if you would say. So a lot of the items, like for example, Hughes Road pipeline replacement, it does technically, yes, it should be replaced. Can we continue to repair it as, we have leaks in it and large failures? Yeah, we could continue along that way, but it does need to be replaced. As you see, in order to make the lower CIP, we completely removed it. The PRVs, so the district embarked on a PRV, which pressure reducing valve program, to replace them systematically over a 10 to 15 year period. This was started some time ago. Idea being that they are coming to their end of their useful life cycle, but also that they are mostly underground facilities. And so the maintenance of them is more dangerous related to confined space issues. So instead of systematically replacing these PRVs, the new concept under the low CIP would be to replace them as they break.
Question. If I understood you correctly, you said that you have done the scoring for only the 2026.
Yeah, we don't apply scoring at the out years.
But at the same time, we're either reducing or something, but we don't know if it's super critical, or how do we accommodate with that? Because Like, we have Colgate. Colgate went down hard and
Yeah.
it scares the living bejeebers out of me. to
Yeah,
think That happens, so, to say the least. So I'm just
Did
curious as
anybody have a
to,
pool on
do
Colgate?
we, how do we make sure that we don't have, or not make sure, there's no way to do that. How do we bet the best odds we can, most educated guess we can, to make sure that we don't have a failure by ranking these as we go out 10 years?
Well, so essentially what ends up happening is, for example, if one of these PRVs blew up and we had to go replace it, if we don't have enough unspended fund balance to be able to cover this increased expenditure we weren't planning on, we would have to go through and prioritize through the annual budgeting process and say, okay, this project just rose to the level, this has to be completed. So what other projects will we unfund? And that is a process that we do go through on every year. We're going through that process. You'll see us coming to the board funding and unfunding things as priorities change or differ, or regulatory requirements push something out, or increase the need for it.
Is there a mechanism? Let's say that 86 becomes the number that is live or die critical. And we happen to move things around because we got a 90. But that brings everything now into an 86. Is there a mechanism for us to be able to take care of something that is at the edge of failure? If we don't have the finances set aside for it.
Scoring.
He's talking about the capital scoring. So if
Oh, okay,
something
thank you.
is on
Sorry.
the edge, so when we go back to, when we go back, every single year, project priority is reevaluated
Mhm.
and scored brand new. So every single year, we have huge meetings between engineering, operations, maintenance, watershed, we get together and we come up with, okay, these are the things that changed over the year from what our plan was. These are the things that we're having issues with. And then we start with like these larger lists before we even start scoring, and we start having conversations about them. Then we score them, then we prioritize, and then we start cutting. And then the next year, it's not just that the next in line comes over. The next in line then has to compete all again for the next year.
And as long as we don't have too many super criticals, we're okay with the budget that we have in place.
With your super criticals, if all of our super critical areas blew up at once, we would be dipping into our reserves, and that's what reserves are for.
The reserves are our fallback.
So is it correct to say that what I see is the difference between the low and the high CIP is that we'll be deferring repair and replacement of treated water lines. If we go with the lower one, we'll be deferring replacement or repair of part of the flume and raw water lines. And that if we ever get another demand request from the state, we will have to raise rates then to meet that. Going with the higher CIP would give us more flexibility and would allow us to do the work faster on the repair and replacement.
Yes.
And we all know that today is cheaper than it will be in 10 years.
And that is correct. So Director Johansson just pointed out some of the large differences. And if you go to page 2 of the handout, and let me scroll this down for you. You know, we have these little projects that essentially get moved to the repair as they break, as opposed to doing preventive maintenance. But what really is impacting a lot of this is the reduction for treated water and the money that is being set aside for routine systematic replacement of the treated water lines. Now, in the high scenario, in comparison, we have for the treated water lines, the pipeline replacement proposals range from 4.6 to about $5 million. That original number was determined based off of conducting analysis of all of the treated water pipelines in the district, and then essentially determining how much pipeline you'd have to replace per year to replace them within a 100-year life cycle. Now, as I've said before, Even that methodology is flawed because many of those pipelines are well over 60 years old now.
Mhm.
So in the low scenario, not only is that number moved, it's dropped to 2 million in most years, and then it goes to 3 million in the out years.
How much more costly is it to do emergency repair versus a planned outage and repair and replace?
That's a big
And
question.
the emergency repairs are typically more disruptive to the customers and cause water supply issues at that, for wherever that service area is. Typically, they're dig and repair, whether it's putting in a new piece of pipe or putting on a saddle or somehow otherwise fixing the leak. But it would come to the point where you end up with so many repairs that it's not as cost effective anymore as if you just came in at once and replaced the line. And you're losing water as well.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Peters, Division 3. If a dam fails.
Hey, Laura, step up so we can,
Yes.
can hear. Thanks.
How would a dam failure impact water supply? If there's nothing in here about dam replacement. There's a lot of money been spent on dams lately, but it seems like the dams, if a dam failed, it should be considered. And I don't see any dam
So
line
we're not
items in here.
worried right now, and that's a great question. So we're not worried right now about any specific dam failing. As you're aware, we have intensive inspection processes. But to her point, we are going through the Part 12D inspection process that is required by FERC.
Mhm.
Part of that process is to do seismic analysis, condition analysis, earth and movement analysis associated with the earthquake event. They look at all sorts of factors. There is going to be a huge, large amount of dam safety work that is going to be required over the next 1 to 2 decades. The totality of what that work is not yet known because those inspections haven't been done. But within the current rate proposal, specifically under the low CIP, the biggest dam safety project is the Scotts Flat spillway repair.
And that's not part of water supply?
I'm unsure. What do you mean?
It's not noted anywhere in here.
It is.
In the water rates.
Yeah, it is. It's down on.
Well, Scott's Flat.
Yeah, it's the
Flat
most expensive
reservoir?
item that's in there.
It's the number.
Okay, so that's the only one. So I know that Yuba Water Agency wasn't expecting Colgate to fail either. So I would advise,
There's
it's
probably a
gonna
lot of
cost money
things
and,
out there, huh?
and mana,
Yeah.
it's not mana from heaven, it's
We have
ratepayer money.
We have
that's
the
paying.
spillway in here.
Yeah,
to be
so the
fixed.
spillway is in there for.
Yeah, I
close
was just at the
to-
general thing, dams
50
are
million.
integral to water supply. And just because FERC covers them, it's a water supply issue. If FERC went away, you'd still have the dams, and so it's part of water supply.
Yep.
Right.
That's my.
Well, and it is, and the Scotts Flat, to your point, Scotts Flat Reservoir is in here for in excess of $50 million. On the high CIP.
Several dams. How many dams do we have?
No, we're talking right now specifically about Scotts Flat.
Yeah.
And it is in here under the high CIP.
Yeah.
That is the
It's under
one dam.
Both of them.
So also,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't want to
All right,
get too
that's my point.
Yeah,
sidetracked with
that's
this,
fine.
but there is also a lot of money that is also incorporated into the operating budgets that
Right.
deal with dam safety and ongoing dam maintenance that don't necessarily rise to
The level of CIP.
Yes,
Yeah.
now remember, capital projects have to meet the capital threshold because they are capitalized on our financials. So these projects that are listed are not everyday normal maintenance items. We do have dam work coming up we have our routine maintenance we're constantly doing. We're constantly going through repairs, addressing things.
Mm.
We have Scotts Flat spillway, specifically in this rate study, which is a high dollar item. We will have some work to do at Combi once those inspections, and with major dam work, it's not something, even with routine maintenance, we still have to coordinate extensively and receive approvals from FERC and DSOD. So although you're seeing primarily one large dam safety project in here, I can rest assured dam safety is also incorporated into the rest of the operating budget, which is rolled into this rate study. With that said, it is a valid point. Dam safety work is, what I have referred to some people as it is an unknown cost that we will be getting hit hard with over the next 5 to 10 years.
So
Is it true that, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
is it true that Hydro is paying for the dam safety work?
Hydro does pay essentially for the dam safety work to the extent that they pay for the upper division. There is one lower elevation dam, Loma Rica, which what budget that comes out of would be a little unclear at this point. We would have to make a decision. The reason why Scotts Flat Spillway is included in the rate study on this capital list is because it's going to be necessary to likely necessary to bond fund the construction of that project. And in order to meet the underwriting for a bond issuance, you do have to substantiate that you are able to cover the debt service as well as your ratepayers can pay the debt. So it has to be folded into the rate study.
Thank you.
If I could just comment on Laura's comment, which is something that came up in my mind recently, was how long do our dams last, right? We got some old dams, right? And what is the
Life cycle?
lifespan of any of them, right? And not that we want to get off in the weeds talking about that, but I think it's something we haven't talked about.
Well, and remember, you're just not seeing a lot of the dam safety work in this list. This is a
Right, I understand
right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. One other question I had, Jennifer, was I found Scotts Flat after looking for it. Are the other current large capital projects like the Rewind in there?
The rewind isn't that. So the hydro department capital program is not reflected on these lists. Those projects they feed the model, but they are not gifted. So the hydro project related to the rewind, we're kind of looking at it as we talked about during the 5-year CIP, the transformer and then the rewind. And so you're not seeing them on those lists, but those are covered on the other lists.
Which other list?
On the hydro capital is not in the.
Oh, the hydro capital is not on this at all?
No.
Okay.
One more quick question. So
Go
who would
ahead.
pay for that hydro capital projects, the rewind and stuff? You're gonna bond it, right?
No one said that.
Oh, okay.
What I said is we'll likely be bonding Scotts Flat.
Okay, well,
Spillway.
who's gonna pay for the hydro rewind?
So that decision hasn't been made yet. I mean, the district somehow, it'd either be through hydropower revenue, it'd be through bonding if we chose to do so. It really depends on what the rewind project completely looks like.
So the current financial situation, hydro is about what, 50 million in reserves? And
That's
it brings in about 25 million a year.
Yeah, so hydro needs to save all the money it has to pay for some large capital projects coming up.
And the estimated cost of the rewinds, what, 80 million? Up.
It keeps
Of course.
going up.
Of course, that was,
It would likely go up.
Yeah, every time we talk
Yeah.
about it.
yeah, that was yesterday's figure.
Yeah, it
Okay.
would likely go up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, now to clarify what you said about the hydro is not on here because it's not affected by the
The
rates.
hydro CIP wasn't modified in the low high as far as the rates go. The hydro CIP is set, it feeds into the model from, remember, when we talked about the calculation of the source water costs.
Right, right.
So right now, the only way that the ratepayers' rates are really shifted by these is the only project we moved over in order to be able to bond for it was Scotts Flat Spillway.
Follow-up question with it. We created a new task, which is quote unquote Brad calls raising Rollins, but I call it the holistic to look at the whole thing. None of that's even considered here. If it did, would that go under hydro or would that go under something else?
Right now, the only work that is moving forward is covered in the operating budgets. So it is in there as far as the operating portion of the model, but there is no capital project related to increasing storage at this point.
But if we did have, that would go under a hydro budget, is that correct? Or-
We'd have to make a decision. It depends on if the board made the determination to move forward with some type of storage project, you would have to bond for it. So you would have to increase the rates to even meet the underwriting to issue a bond.
Thank you.
Okay. So then just really quickly going through, it's real similar with the raw water infrastructure. So the yellow items, so we moved the replacement in the low capital for the Ore Creek, Dry Creek, and the Raw Creek siphons out years, and had made it so they start in or saddle the two different rate periods.
Mhm.
And then same with China Union Canal Diversion Dam. And then there's some items we just simply remove. So these would be kind of those in that category of, if it breaks, you're gonna have to fix it. We will Band-Aid it as much as we can. There were several the small gauging stations. And then there is the pipe flume replacement, which was drastically reduced. So this is money that you would set aside for South Yuba Canal, because hydro can't handle all of South Yuba Canal replacement for a significant time period. And so that is was reduced to about well, in the initial years, the first 4 years of the rate study, it'd be $0 saved for it. And then in the higher CIP, we calculated about 4.1 to, depending on the year, around 4 million a year to work on it.
That's South Yuba specific?
It would also go for some other, it could go for other pipes and.
But the other hydro projects are not on this? Why is that I don't understand.
See, I'm still screwing with
So
that.
isn't that a hydro? South Yuba Canal is a hydro
Yeah,
project?
so we look at what draws down also the hydro reserves too much. So when you go through and start looking down at the hydro reserves and the amount of hydro capital, if we are going to start bonding for things, we would have to include it in the rate model. If you don't want to bond for anything, we'd pull it out, but then you're not going to be able to meet bond underwriting. You'd have to go back and redo your rates.
So just so to recap for myself, so the difference between the high and low as it relates to the South Yuba Canal flume replacement and repair, that the low CIP has very little, I see, is it about 2.5 million, but not starting for 5 years or so, where the higher one is more routine, and we're investing significantly higher dollars in the high CIP.
Yeah, the low CIP is bare bones.
That's right. Okay, that's
It
just like
doesn't-
Band-Aids.
Yeah, it doesn't take into account any future large significant dam improvements. It doesn't take into account doing really anything big for
Right.
South Yuba Canal. It doesn't take into account any storage. It really is bare bones.
It's bare bones. And, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm really uncomfortable with the low CIP decision versus the high. I tend to favor the high CIP, model and that decision point, because I'm really concerned about the South Yuba Canal. That is our artery for everything. Is it true?
Yeah, South Yuba Canal is essential to our water supply system.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
hydro, it's everything. It's
No, and
treated,
the contribution to Deer Creek hydropower house is very small. And the Scotts Flat hydropower house that's the house that we utilize for the PG&E Res BCT program, which
Right.
offsets our top 50 PG&E bills. From a power generation perspective, the South Yuba Canal down, it doesn't really move the needle on hydropower production,
on hydro.
but it's critical from a water supply
For
standpoint.
supply, for
Yeah.
both treated and raw.
Oh, absolutely critical. It's the only artery that
Right.
feeds Scotts Flat.
Well, that's right. Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
it is the only.
It is the only one. Yep.
Okay, so does anyone have any more questions on this before? And I know this is a high level overview, but remember this is consistent with the previous 5-year CIPs. With the exception of us doing some shifting to provide an option to the board if you'd like to have some lower rates.
Mhm.
In the weeds question, if I could. If we have canals out there that are going to out of district areas, we're going to basically assign larger cost to the ones going to out of district than to in district, correct?
Yeah, so the out of district customers, they essentially have to pay for, remember that source of supply that I referenced earlier? Their fair share portion of the upward deficient, because it's under the theory that they would not receive the benefit from hydropower revenue. And then they would have to pay additional monies because they also don't get to take advantage of the property tax.
Right.
So their rates do significantly go up.
If we were to have a failure on one of the canals that only serves few people, would we have the ability to shut that canal down if we don't have the reservoir reserves to take care of it? Or how does that all play out? Maintenance thing.
It's
I
a
know
sticky
what you're
legal
talking
issue. Yeah, it would depend on a case by case basis, and it really fundamentally comes down to whether or not they have any other supply of water. So we, as some of the board is aware, we did discontinue serving raw water to the Smartsville area because the improvements that were needed to continue to serve that water were astronomical compared to the revenue recovered from those customers. However, they still had a treated water source. So we were in that situation able to stop serving them raw water because they could use treated water.
Do we also consider cattle as far as drinking from the canals, et cetera, as far as making sure that canal stays active if it's, you know what I mean? Does that make sense at all?
Did you say cattle?
Cattle, yes.
No, we don't really take into consideration animals that drink out of the canals when we're making operational decisions that, per our rules and regulations, and this is where Chip is really good. He has them memorized. Per our rules and regulations, yeah, they're supposed to actually have a separate area for them to drink out of and not rely on drinking straight out of the canals.
Isn't the driver for that one the constructed conveyance?
Yeah, so a lot of the, especially the winter canals that we still run for the most part, they do still have constructed conveyance customers on those canals. And those are the customers that utilize raw water in home.
Welcome back.
All right. So we will stop sharing.
Right,
Eric?
Right. You know, though, I do want to thank you and staff because this is really answers so much of where we've been struggling about,
Right.
well, what are we not going to get? What are we going to get
Yeah.
from the two different models? So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Me too.
Workshop.
I still wanted the third option.
I don't think we can afford a third option.
You already got the Band-Aid option.
Will this be posted on the website?
Which are you asking?
The
These?
document, I mean,
This?
this,
The high-low.
high-low. Request that.
If we want, you know, if you want it to, I would see why we would not.
Yeah, we could post it as
Yeah, I would think we should.
far as the minutes.
All right.
I want to go back to cows
Well-
walking out of the canals.
So you're taking those two scenarios into account. You know, we looked at what it would take to fund those scenarios, and you know, the numbers here, we're looking at that 4% cost inflation, which we had talked about. And we'll show, we looked at 5% and 6% on both scenarios as well, and we'll show that in a couple slides. But you know, for both scenarios, there needs to be a fairly significant amount of debt funding. And you know, with in this case, at the 4% inflation, it'd be about 75 million for the low, which would be about 5 million at the end of this period, and 115 for the high scenario, which would be about 8 million of ongoing debt service for that scenario. So in addition to looking at, you know, debt service and cash funded capital, we also made sure, you know, looking at escalating operating costs with inflation. As I said, this is 4%, but we also escalated the CIP at that same level. And in all of the scenarios, we try to maintain an even reserve fund that kept reserves at a prudent level. As we talked about earlier, in case there are more some catastrophic failures, and also to support creditworthiness for the borrowing that's going to be necessary.
What's the current interest rate on bonds?
Around 4%. I haven't looked, it's 4.25%, I want to say. I haven't looked in the past couple of weeks, so
It's a push with inflation, but inflation could go up.
or down. Yes.
Okay, but it evens us out if we do bond.
Yeah, and we try to also make conservative assumptions, especially as it goes out. And I think we were assuming about 5% for the overall cost, because it's been kind of up and down. Maybe, yeah, I think it was 5% we assumed for just to be on the safe side, along with some other issuance costs. Yes, but it is, once you have it, it is a stable cost that won't change with inflation once it's in place. And if anything, it can only go down if you have the opportunity to refinance it. So looking at the overall revenue needs in these different scenarios, your current rate revenue is about $27 million. So this is all looking at the increases to that to fund these scenarios. So what we showed you last time was just the 4% assumption. So looking at 12.5 across the board increases to fund the high CIP scenario, and 9.5 across the board increases to fund the lower CIP scenario. We then looked at including 5% and 6% inflation and what that would look like in those same scenarios. And so the lower CIP goes up to about 12% to fund it. And I basically try to keep the cash funded capital level somewhat similar. And so I increased the debt a little bit just to kind of make sure the scenarios could be smooth for an even comparison and a similar reserve level. So it's not exactly the same, but it allows that kind of comparison of 9.5, 11, or 12%. But that's why it's not an exact, that's why the next one can be 12 and the other's 11, because there's a little bit of debt difference. And on the high scenario, it's 12.5, 14, and then 15.5. So about 1.5% difference. And that's also because the CIP is also changing with inflation, especially in the years, 4 or 5, and then the 5 through 10, that has a bigger impact because it's cumulative increases on the cost.
So going with a bond at a certain percentage allows us to plan better.
It can, yeah. I mean, the sooner you do the project, I think just doing it sooner allows you to plan better.
Do you factor in any changes in the ad valorem tax?
I believe I'll have.
So what is that?
The property taxes.
Is our percentage of the 1% of the property tax, and it increases by 2. It's
Prop 13.
Yeah, Prop 13 limits the increase to 2% of your adjusted value each year.
So we kept that just at that Prop 13 level, which is below inflation. Yeah.
So it doesn't move much.
It doesn't, it's been moving every year, but not much.
Yes.
Not much.
Yeah, it's a slightly smaller portion of your overall revenue every year as time goes on.
Okay.
But so looking at the different outcomes, the 9.5 to 12 will fund your lower CIP, 12.5 to 15 will fund the higher CIP at that range between 4 and 6% inflation.
It's a good summary.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's
Pretty straightforward.
trying to keep it concise. Everything, this is also a 4% comparison. You saw this in the last, but for those who didn't see it, these charts show graphically what the water enterprise looks like, or water fund looks like over 5 years. The columns are the total expenses consisting of operating costs, and you can see that's the lion's share of the cost. Debt service, which increases more gradually as you add on, as you do additional bond funding, but that, you know, stays with the fund for the next 30 years. And then rate funded capital, which is less, less consistent and, varies with your bond assumptions. But these two scenarios, we try to keep the reserves, the ending reserve in relatively the same position, and just show the revenue, which is the green line, show what that would need to be in either scenario. So essentially the revenue is keeping pace with the costs, and the decision is really just whether, how steep that line needs to be. And one thing to just keep in mind with utility revenues, it's, costs, inflation has been a consistent thing for existence.
Yeah.
And so your line needs to go up. It's just how steep it needs to go up. And if it's steeper than it needs to be, then the following 5 years can be less steep. So it's just, you want to put yourself in a good position for the next 5 years, and to try to mitigate. The goal from our perspective is, as rate consultants, is to try to have that slope be predictable and consistent. That's how we how we recommend setting up financial plans.
Question?
Mhm.
I think I've asked this question before, but I just want to confirm it. We have the green line is projected revenue based on your model, correct?
Correct. So
in that, we only have the projected debt for the current projected projects, CIP projects, correct? Do we have a model that shows the prior debt, how it's being handled, and whether this revenue line will take care of those also, or do we get into a negative deficit point at some point in time?
So the debt service consists of your existing plus additional debt service. Yeah.
Okay.
So you see it's narrow on the high CAP and grows like triples essentially. And so that's your current baseline debt service on the existing bonds that you issued previously.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about reserves. So but so the hash line, it shows the reserves looking reasonably stable. They take a dip on the higher CIP, but what you're modeling here is for us to be able to have a consistent amount of reserves either way.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And to be able to at least maintain it, because you are in this period of needing to do increasing capital spending. And so to maintain it, and then once you get over, kind of get through that period, you could, potentially bring them a little bit higher. I think our typical recommendation is to have, give or take, but aim for a year of operating costs and reserve.
Right.
But you can look at that once you get through this period. This period is really just to make sure that you can accomplish the capital goals you have, and maintain a reserve level that it meets your objectives.
So we haven't raised rates in 4 years.
Yes.
I was going to go right there.
And how much? So the line going to be steeper. If we had consistent rates over the last 4 years, this wouldn't be so dramatic.
Correct.
And the longer we wait, the more dramatic it'll be.
Correct. And I apologize, I had that number in my head. I believe it was for the 12.5% scenario. Don't quote me, I'll have to double check it, but it was something like, it would have been around, I think it was 6.8% if you would have kind of done it.
Just
been-
We'd have consistently
Yes.
raised the rates over the last 4 years.
Correct.
That was my exact question is, put your hindsight glasses on and how would this have impacted us?
Yeah, 6.8%, and the lower CFP was about 5-ish.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. So,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Opportunity missed.
Yeah.
Keeping those hindsight glasses on.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yeah, please come.
Oh, we can't.
Yeah.
We can't all hear you and it
The Zoom people-
records.
Zoom
and
So
people can.
keeping your hindsight glasses on. What are the cost reductions that you either did to get us where we're at, to appreciate those rates that we've had over the 4 years, or hindsight glasses? What do you wish you would have done now that, hindsight's always 20/20, that we can move forward instead of just always increase the rates because of course costs increase and we haven't done it for 4 years. What are some cost reductions that have been done or wished we would have done?
Well, Jen
we
can
get
answer
your
that
name for the
question.
minutes?
She's
done them all, yes.
she's done them all and staff was one of them. And go ahead, Jen.
Oh, Mona, MONA, fast.
So essentially, there was two things that occurred why we kind of put a pause on the rates. One was to finish the plan for water. So
Right.
the district was at a huge crossroads on whether to move forward with Centennial or not. The board made the determination to go through that process to make that decision. The second thing that we did was we completely cleaned up the finances. So that did take a little bit of time. So during that time period, because I knew we weren't raising the rates, we essentially saved as much money as we possibly could. We did keep the CIP low.
Right.
We kept expenditures low. We lowered the number of staff. So we went from, what was it, 215, 218 down to 200 full-time equivalents. So we made a lot of internal moves to shore up the finances and save as much money as possible.
Right, that's what I recall.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that you have to have, on Prop 218, you have to justify every rate increase. And we can do that now.
I was also going to just respond. There was also with the inflation projections. I think historically it's been about, the overall inflation's been about 3%. Utilities have experienced higher inflation. I think your utility in the past several years experienced closer to 6% inflation. Inflating costs. I think power has been a significant one. Treatment chemical costs have gone really have increased. I don't know specifically for your district, but I just know that in the industry that 90-200% cost inflation. So there's some factors, and then benefits and insurance have also been increasing at quite a high rate. That's also, the district has been able to kind of also do things, as Jennifer said, to contain costs. And so that's where we landed on that 4%. But our general, philosophy would be to project, to ensure that, we would want to be conservative. So if, we will usually try to have a 0.5% to 1% above what we think the average inflation will be, to ensure that there's some cushion. And then over the next, especially when you're issuing debt, because you want to make sure that you're able to have this, demonstrate that you have the sufficient revenues to support the debt service. And if projections come in better than we include, then next time around you can always have a lower slope. So instead of, I think in our model, we're looking at around 7 to 8, depending on, with all those 6 scenarios, there's slight variations, but I think it was around between 7 and 8 percent increases after the 5-year period. So that's with just kind of the current model assumptions and the current CIPs. And, so if you came in, if things were better than expected, then that could be potentially 6%. If it's worse than expected, then it would be 8 or 9%. But, it's not, if you over collect, it doesn't mean, the money will just sit there. It usually, it just means that you're in a better position for the future and can have lower increases. But really, there's never a period where especially with, the age of your system, where your costs are just going to flatten out. Your costs are going to keep on that steady march, and you're just kind of trying to keep pace.
Excuse me. I'm a big believer of plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yes.
And I'm a big, it's my motto in life. And one thing I don't want to do though is we raise the rates 5,000,000%, and we're sitting on a pile of cash and we have no way of spending it. And then some bureaucrat finds a way to.
Yes.
So
Yes.
With that said, is there a avenue or a mechanism in this that we could refund it to the customers if we had a surplus, if you will? And two, or does it have to be refunded, or is there a way it would accidentally get rolled over to something else?
So with how it's structured, I guess it doesn't have to be refunded. Everything we're looking at is our projections. And so if you get more revenue than you projected, say maybe inflation drops to 2%, or interest rates drop and your debt is much cheaper than we anticipated. What we see happening is normally, instead of having to raise rates 9% in years 5 through 10, you raise rates 7% or 6%, depending on how much better it is. So it's just your next set of increases are a little bit lower. And ideally that you want to get to a point where, your annual cost revenue increases are basically, around the inflationary increases. So once you get through your capital program, like we want to kind of be on a trajectory to where you're, getting to a point where your rate revenue increases can be
You're in the sweet spot.
right around inflation plus 0.5% or 1% or something like that.
Just for clarification, I wasn't referring to you as the bureaucrat. I was referring to this.
That's not what I heard.
One thing I'd also keep in mind, it's highly unlikely that we're gonna get a giant pile of cash that we don't need.
I actually like his idea.
Hope for the best.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably our biggest risk on a huge cost overrun is Scott's Flat Spillway project. So anybody who's doing large concrete projects right now are seeing out of control costs
I
happening.
just don't want some bureaucrat in Sacramento saying, hey, they got positive cash flow right now. Let's add more deep things to their list.
That's not, they don't care if you have cash or not when they add regulations. So
They do
I think we're safe from
Do that
it.
without cash.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they don't take our cash into consideration.
okay.
But it's not likely. I would bet you right now that that's not what's going to happen, but.
Plan for the worst, hope for the
Could
best.
decide, so say we won, I don't know, say I went and bought a lottery ticket for the district and we won hundreds of millions of dollars. The board could give a credit to the
You can't lose if you don't play.
customers. I'm a gambler,
I don't know
so-
if that's a strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
a
don't
strategy,
play
but the
lotto.
board theoretically could always give a credit.
Okay.
I've never seen it happen unless there's threat of a lawsuit, but.
So we kind of going into our rate structure recommendations, looking at, potable water, your use fluctuates a bit from year to year. This is looking at the last 4 years, but it's relatively consistent, and single family use is the largest component of your treated water use. We have 3 primary recommendations and really 4. I'll highlight that on the next slide, but The primary recommendation is, the most significant one is to move from a rate with two tiers to just having one singular tier. That really is, because we feel that is the, best reflection of proportionality. It's simpler to, administer. And it's with the uncertain legal landscape around Prop 218, what is considered proportional or not, it appears to be the safest approach. And you still are sending the signal, as you use more, you pay more. But it's a much more easy to understand from customer perspective and from a district.
So we're not punishing someone for using more water if they have to?
Correct. If you need more water, you pay the same, you still pay more per unit, but it's the same price as you paid before. And so we especially, with how your district operates, and the different, we have to justify that additional jump in costs. We feel it's more, it better reflects the current operations of the district to just move to that uniform rate.
If we were buying water at a different tier, then we would have to add that added charge, right? If someone using more water. That's typical.
Yeah, it depends on how, you're using it, if it really is because you're trying to meet that extra demand, or if it's, some agencies buy it, but it's just kind of blended and it still is a uniform rate. But it really, if you're buying it to supplement that demand, if we can if that's something you can clearly demonstrate, then you can pass that on in the form of tiered rates. Theoretically, well, there's depending on which appeals court district you're in right now, there's two completely different rulings in Southern California in that basically are one would completely agree with that and one wouldn't. The other recommendation was looking at only allocating the benefit from the property tax to the inside district customers that pay the property tax. So not aligning that with the source with the use, and then also passing along, as was mentioned earlier, the source of supply costs that are covered by hydro revenues to outside district customers as well. And there was one final change with the rate structure, which was there's currently a separate fixed charge for regulatory fees. And we are recommending just rolling that into the overall fixed charge and not having it be called out separately. Any questions? Oh, yes.
This is Laura. Aren't all the property tax collected from all the properties in the boundary within the district, whether they receive water or not? Is that correct?
Correct.
So why, and the purpose of the property tax, I thought, was for projects that provided greater good to the entire community, not just to paying customers. That's why we get property tax, was my understanding. Can you correct me if I'm wrong, please?
I'm unclear where you're going with that.
Well,
So
I would say
we have properties that are within the outer boundary, but are not in district. All the donut holes and islands, they do not pay property.
So only district customers pay.
No,
Get
that's
the
not what I
percentage of
said.
district.
Only parcels that are within the district's jurisdictional boundary pay property tax. The boundary isn't a solid boundary with an exterior border. It is an exterior border with holes all through it.
Right. So if my neighbor, I'm in Division 2, 3. I don't know what division I'm in. I guess I'm in Division 3. Not everyone in that division pays property taxes, whether they are customers or not.
I don't know your specific neighborhood. but there,
Pardon?
I don't know your specific neighborhood.
No, I'm talking about Division 3. I'm talking about the boundaries of
So, yeah,
Division 3.
what she was saying is there are property, it's possible that you have a neighbor inside of the big district boundary that is not inside of the district. There are landowners that decided to not become in the district.
And
when
they
the
don't pay
district
any
was
property
formed.
taxes. We don't
don't
get
pay
any
ta-
property
right.
taxes from
And
them.
therefore they pay more for their water if they get it.
And so you delineate all of those spaces and
Oh, yeah.
areas.
Probably on the website.
There's
Yeah.
a-
It's on the website. There's, you've been part of several actions that have gone through the annexation process to annex some of those items
Into it. Sure.
into the district, yeah.
Okay.
So we, just to, do a more straightforward comparison this time. We combined the low and the high into this one table and this is the low scenario. So looking at the bill, bill would be at different usage levels. And so with the, proposed, at a kind of an indoor use level, you'd look at going from 4333, so 5 units of water, to 47, 46, or 48, 48, 74. So it's a little, it's between 413 and 541 as far as the monthly cost, $5.41, the monthly cost. And for a higher user, so a bill maybe irrigating in the summer. And it is important to keep in mind that most residential customers do have lower use bills in the winter and higher use bills in the summer. Their bill would go from 90.28 to 94.86 or 96.89. So going up by about $4.58 or $6.61, depending on the low and the high scenario. So that's kind of the spectrum of impacts on the to inside district potable customers.
Quick question if I could. I know there's no such thing as typical, but what is a typical customer where a single family residential going to use summer, winter?
Probably, typical would probably be around 10, but I think over the pattern, it's probably 5-ish in the winter and going up to 15 or 20 in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So the difference between the low and the high, if they're using 10 CCF, is $1.51 a month.
Correct.
That's a hot dog at Costco.
Yeah. Still.
Can't even buy some M&Ms for that.
And looking at where that places you in comparison, and just we want the 10 unit, that's kind of the average use roughly. Where that places you relative to your neighbors. And again, this surveys are helpful at a high level, but there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, size of the district, age of the district, topography that do also influence source of supply costs that influence district agency costs, but relative to other agencies in your area, your potable rates are on the lower end and they would still stay within that lower range of cost. Going on to the raw water, users, there's a fixed charge per account and a per miners inch charge. You have about 5,500 accounts in total. And your miners inches are, of those accounts, you have 89 outside district accounts, just to kind of show the proportionality of the impacts. The cost of service recommendations are the same as far as the property tax and the source of supply. And then there was also the 5% prepayment discount that was that you currently have that we're recommending phasing that out, because it costs the district, I think, more to process it than the benefit of but there was some discussion around that last time, but this is just kind of recapping our current state. And so the impacts to different at different levels, with our updated cost of service, there's a little bit of a shift to more volumetric recovery than fixed recovery. And so the fixed cost is paid by every customer, no matter if they have 1 miners inch or 250 miners inches, and the variable cost is paid per miners inch. This is looking at the inside district customers in the inside district raw water customers using half a miners inch, 1 miners inch, and 5. And half 1 miners inch is more than 50. Customers with 1 miners inch consist of more than 50% of all of your accounts. And then 5 is, I believe, a little over 90% of all your accounts, but there are some accounts on the outlying boundary that have a significant amount of use or a significant amount of miners inches. But so looking at a half miners inch, you're looking at the change going from 740 to 857.35, and then 1 miners inch, so going up to 820.66 or 857.35. And keep in mind, this is for a whole season, the whole summer season, so 6 months rather than the last comparison was monthly.
Right.
And then for 1 miners inch, going from 907 to 1,007 or 1,054. And then for 5, going from 2,253 to 2,500 or 2,628.
Eric?
Yeah.
I see that in the chart, but I don't see that in the writing above that. I see that in the picture, but in the where it says proposed summer bill high for a half inch, it says 48.74, 64.79, and 96.89. What am I reading there for the 5 miners inches under the proposed summer bill?
I apologize. I think that
Difference between the high and the low.
I apologize. I missed the update. The chart looks like I didn't get the update.
So I'm not misreading that.
No, you're not. I'll send it updated. I think the last slide table.
Okay, but the pictures underneath are correct.
The pictures are correct.
Other part.
Up until the.
I like the pictures anyway, so
yeah.
thank you.
I think that's probably why I missed it. I like them too.
All right.
Yeah, I think so at this.
There you go.
Yeah,
This change is where it
What kind of laser is that?
stops.
That's great.
that's a very cool thing.
Yeah, no, it was cool.
Yeah.
It's a house laser, I guess.
It's a house laser.
But yeah, so from here over, this is correct, and I apologize that this change was not updated. But yeah, so 11% overall with those changes, and between the existing to the low, and the high would be roughly proportional. So it's a little bit more than the overall rate increase because of some of the cost of service adjustments. But this is for the first year, and then after the first year, it's would maintain with in the low scenario, those 9.5% increases. It'd be that you have the initial cost of service update in the first year, where all the different customer classes have varying changes, some higher or lower than the others, to reflect the current cost of running the system. As was mentioned before, you haven't updated your rates in quite some time, and so you haven't done a full review of your cost of service in quite a while too. So that's the rates in the first year are reflecting that update, and then going forward, you're keeping up with the recommended revenue changes. We did show the difference in rates, just so you can have it available to reference. The inside raw summer customers are fairly even, pretty even proportional outcomes. And So we just looked at 1 miner's inch, looking at the overall revenue in the first year, the overall revenue increase of 9.5, 12. Sorry, 9.5. 9.5, 12. I'll have to go back to the slide.
Are you referring to that prior slide?
Yeah, but the
Oh, okay.
4, 5, and 6% inflation
Uh-huh.
assumptions under the high CIP and the low CIP. So basically ranging from 9.5 to 16% overall rate revenue increase, and what the outcomes are. There's a slight proportionality shift in the initial year as well, just because there's the high CIP has some different allocation assumptions than the low CIP. The high CIP, we're taking in more capital, and there's a higher portion of capital and how we're allocating costs between treated and raw and inside outside. So there's just an impact in which, projected version of which projection we are basing our allocations on. So looking at the 1 miner's inch, your current costs versus other costs, you're on the raw side, your costs are on the higher end, but within the range of, other customers, and it'd be going from, we'd basically stay in kind of the same position relative to your other regional customers, but staying at that higher than average.
I have a question. How many of these irrigation districts that you list down here at the bottom are in their 218 process right now?
That's where I was headed.
See, because I'm curious about, especially like Placer County Water Agency.
PCWA is starting right now.
Who said that? I'm sorry. Jen?
PCWA is starting
They're starting
right
right now. So that's my point, is that the 8852.55 for PCWA won't hold. It will be something higher than that. We just don't know what it will be. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is that also true of the other irrigation districts that you hear, or do you know whether they're in their?
I don't know offhand. I can go back and see if some of them are on 218s currently, some of them are out for, but generally most utilities that are either in of 218 or in the process because of the inflation that occurred in, during the 2019 to 2021 period. So most utilities are either in the process or at your phase where they're starting the process.
Like the Browns Valley is putting in a new pipeline,
I would assume
10 miles.
Yeah. And I think they are either in or are going to.
So
I think
Glen Calusa, don't they tier? I mean, you got a whole bunch of irrigation districts over there, and a lot of them tier the delivery system operations and maintenance separate from, and also repayment to the Bureau of Reclamation. And then you buy the water on top. Having personal experience, I've paid as much as 9 times $466 one year for water there. A miner's inch is 9 acre feet. I think the current price last year was close to 50 some acre feet, but that's anonymous. That doesn't ever happen.
Your point being that that's artificially low.
Very low.
In reference to the rest of the rates that we're trying to examine.
And I would also say that the raw water rate survey is even less, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, even in the treated water. With the raw water, there's even more for the reasons you're stating. And, we're just kind of taking a snapshot in time. But there are a lot of different factors, and tiering and other.
It was 1 year or a group of years?
Or we just looked at this year, because.
Yeah, one of the things that's always really difficult and really skews a comparison like this is the number of customers per linear foot of infrastructure. you know, the more denser, higher density customers that you have makes everything cheaper for everyone.
Sure.
We have a very unfortunate situation having very long, lots of miles of infrastructure with low density of customers. So it's really hard to compare.
And I had to ask that question, why we're high on
Eh,
raw and low on treated,
Is it density of customers?
because the, yeah,
Density and these are not necessarily updated.
well, yeah.
You
that's-
know, they're gonna shift, it sounds like to me. Okay,
Sir, would you mind coming up to the podium and ask your question? Hello?
Oh, I'll just repeat yes, the 107 and the 1054 represent the first year of the cost for 1 miner's inch at the low CIP scenario of a 9.5% overall revenue increase and the high CIP scenario of a 12.5% overall revenue increase.
The next year.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, what's
so
the fifth year? That's a great question,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the fifth year on the high and the low?
The fifth year on the high and the low,
You're around 1,200 and some.
correct.
We got extra pages on this. Yes.
So the,
Presented last time, we just kept them for reference.
yeah, so it'd be, yeah, about 20, for the low, it would be about, 1440. And, for the high, it would be about, 1680 in 2030. So to keep that 12.5, either 9.5% per
Or
year on top of
over
that
time.
initial.
Mhm.
So it'd be that initial rate and then 9.5%. So you have the reset for the cost service reset, and then 4 years of 9.5 or cost service reset, and then 4 years of 12.5, depending on which scenario. So
Do we know what the total is?
uh
15 or
I can get that. I can get the number of the total increase. I don't have it on the top of my head
No.
right now, but I can look that up.
Which is trying
Yeah.
to calculate.
There's Rich calculating.
yeah. You can imagine it.
You guys, just for, this is being videoed, so if you have comments, please come up to the podium so we can hear you. Thank you, but we'll get you your answer.
But yeah, so that's the yeah, so that's the comparison.
Mhm.
We have the different levels at different inflation percent assumptions. And then just talking about the schedule, I think looking to get feedback on the 218 notice amounts in the next board meeting, and then go if that's the case going forward with the 218 notice and administrative exhaustion procedure, be sending out notices by March 20th, and then having a public hearing on May 27th, so that rates will then be effective by the July 1 fiscal year.
So before we move forward, we do have several items that we need feedback on. Would you like to go through those now, President Beerwagon?
Well, I mean, are we going to go to Andy that has been patiently waiting and get
Andy's
his?
here to assist us with any questions that may come up. Andy does not have a presentation.
Well,
Whose meeting is
certainly
this?
clarification on the 5% discount,
Right, that
and
was
also
my
the
concern.
clarification on different tiers, charging different category groups of people, classifications of people, different rates to subsidize other rates.
Okay,
ratepayers.
let's start with a list though, so that we
Go
don't
ahead.
get lost.
Go
Okay.
ahead. Yes.
And Andy is here to assist us. So the first item I think that Director Johansson was referencing is the current 5% discount program that is provided or is allowed for raw water customers if they pay in a single payment versus a multi-payment or a payment plan system. So as we discussed at the last meeting, there are some concerns with the 5% discount and the legality as far as it relates to Proposition 218. So when the 5% discount is allowed for, essentially another ratepayer is paying that reduction. So the amount of the discount in totality does fluctuate every year. It could be anywhere from, $150,000 to $250,000. And the number of customers who take advantage of it can also fluctuate on an annual basis. One thing to think about this way is when we develop these rate models, we look at the total revenue required to pay for all the expenditures, have reserves, make debt service. When we allow for the discount, we essentially have to increase others' rates to pay for that reduction in revenue. So that is where we come in with the Prop 218 challenges. But if you have any more legal questions about it, Andy is on the line and can answer them. Another way to think about it is everybody took the 5% discount. There would be no 5% discount because you'd automatically be having to increase the rates equally, right? So does anyone have any questions for Andy on that?
Yeah.
Rich?
So we don't know how it started. It's been in for decades. Obviously under Prop 218, it's illegal. We need to change it. For 2026, people will be paying their bill by April 1st, March. Will the 5% discount still be in effect at that moment for 2026? Even though we have not passed the new rates?
So we have held the bills to hear what the board wants to do.
So we can do that as a standalone issue though, right? It doesn't affect our decisions about Prop 218 or
About the rates.
The rate process, right? Isn't it a standalone?
Yes and no. I mean, the
Okay.
rate model is not built
Well,
in it.
I'm thinking it is, but maybe Andy can weigh in on that one.
Yeah, and
Rate model.
Hello, Andy.
hi everybody. Two things. One, although I agree that moving the 5% subsidy forward is not the conservative approach. I wouldn't necessarily concede that it's illegal right now, given its age and its incorporation in prior rates. So that's kind of a minor point, but just to make the legal point for the purpose of the record. And then secondly, going forward, the subsidy 5% discount, let's call it, I agree it's a standalone issue. It certainly does need to be addressed in the 218 rate study because, as Jennifer said, it's a $250,000 issue and that revenue needs to be accounted for. But it's also really policy determination for the board. So I haven't discussed specifically with Jennifer and Dustin about how the board would take action on that. I think one approach would be you just don't include it in the rate study and you notify ratepayers that it's no longer available. You could also just notify ratepayers it's no longer available because the board made that determination on a policy basis. Either way, you're going to make a policy call. And it's whether you incorporate it in the new rates is one decision, whether you continue to offer it for the 2026 year is, I think you can think of that as a different issue.
Andy, I have a question about that because I read pretty thoroughly your memo of whenever this was 2020, October 17th, 2024. And your conclusion is that you are attorneys.
Before actually, Director Heck, that's an attorney-client privilege memorandum. So it's up to the board whether it wants to waive the privilege on that. It certainly can, but if we could just kind of more generally have a discussion, that would make me more comfortable.
Okay, if you'll wait a second, I was concerned that you just stated that it is not illegal.
Right. I heard
But
that too.
and so there's a contradiction in what we are seeing here. And let me just ask this. If we were to continue the 5% subsidy, would that expose the district to potential liability?
I don't know that terminating the 5% discount eliminates any exposure, because the statute of limitations arguably would go back for 2 years. So I think the district certainly has defenses if somebody wants to raise issues regarding this 5%. I don't think it's a good lawsuit for a ratepayer to bring. Do you limit exposure going forward by deciding that you're not going to offer it anymore? Probably, just because it's one less year of the discount that of revenue that you've foregone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to bring this back to
Yes.
this meeting a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes conversations when we're talking about litigation exposure looking backwards, probably the better off.
Opening a door.
Yeah.
Is it? Yes.
So from the standpoint from this particular rate model, currently we have not built in the 5% discount into the model to ensure that the model is compliant with Prop 218 and that it's charging a cost of service for each customer class that is, you know, the rate is associated with the cost of service to provide the service to each customer class. So
I think that's prudent and conservative, all that.
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
So moving forward, it is part of the rules and regulations. So I'm hearing a general consensus that the board would like to take this up formally about the 5%. So we'll bring that back as a separate item.
I think that.
Okay, that's
Yes.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
This is Laura Peters. I have a question about that, because the 5%, you're saying that it costs $250,000 to give the 5% back. That's understanding. It's costing the district $250,000 to allow
That's
this.
what we hear.
But have you considered the amount, how much it costs to process monthly payments dribbling in all summer long? How much does that cost for them to have to pick it up and put it down, pick it up, put it down? And I guess the point of mine is that 5% is a small bone to throw to your customers. I mean, people like it. It's good, and I think it offsets the having to pick it up and start, because many people can't afford paying the whole thing at once, and they pay monthly payments or bi-monthly payments. But your staff has to do that work. How much does that? So when you bring it up, consider that.
Laura, that's an interesting question. And a question I asked at our previous meeting was, where did this come from? At some point, somebody thought this was a good idea.
Yeah.
Because it was either a labor savings or a cash flow issue for the agency.
Right.
We don't know the history of it. Apparently,
Oh.
nobody here. Chris is the longest history.
And I've had the discount for 50, 60 years.
Yeah, and
So
we've always had it. And
It would
we've
be
always,
useful to
we've
know
always been
how
told.
that came into place.
We've been told that it offsets the cost of having to
Uh,
deal with multiple payments.
No, so I would like to step in. It actually costs significantly more to
Mhm.
process somebody who's paying on a one-time payment as opposed to somebody who's
Yeah.
paying an automatic installment
It
payment.
seems
And the
counterintuitive.
reason, and it does seem counterintuitive, but it's the reason how, it's the manner in which billing systems are set up.
Right.
They are not automatically set up to bill everything at once. They are automatically as a batch set up to go out in installments. So when we modify a billing schedule and do it off book, we have to completely process those bills off book and calculate them off book. So it costs a significant amount of money. Not only does it result in reduced revenue, but it also costs a lot more labor to process that way.
Right. My problem with it, Laura, is that that we are treating one class of customers differently than another class. And then that 250,000, let's say,
150.
or 150 or whatever it is, gets paid by somebody. Okay, it's like, if you get the discount and I don't, I'm helping to pay for your discount.
I understand.
Yeah, and that's troubling to me.
Yeah.
It is
Well,
troubling.
then we'll have everyone bring in checks every month.
It's only, currently the system is only set up to have 3 installment payments. Okay.
That's a fair point that I get that discount, which I do really look forward to. I buy a lot of water and I've gotten that for, gosh, I don't know how many years. I bought water for 45 years and
Yep.
I don't know when they started that, but to your point, that discount is offered to everybody. So it's not a privilege to me that I get it. I choose to take it. So I don't think you can say that I'm getting something that my neighbor can't get if he wants to take advantage of it. But I think that to get a big rate increase, which I understand, probably necessary. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to take away on top of that. It's like hitting you in the face twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you ought to do that next year after I've survived my 10% or 11%. And I had asked this gentleman too, why we were so pessimistic about it being a 4% inflation rate. I think we're going to hear tonight from our government that it's going to be a lot less than that, maybe 3% inflation rate. And yet we haven't even calculated that possibility. So I see we go, it could be 4, could be 5, could be 6. Maybe it's going to be 2.5. We might hear tonight it's going to be 2.
Well, we hope so.
But
Yeah, hopefully that will be the case.
yeah, I understand.
So
But
we discussed that because of what happened
yeah, I understand.
that past several years.
No, I totally agree with you. I love that 5%. I look forward to it also, and I kind of look at it like a credit card bill. You can either pay your credit card bill in full up front, or you
Yeah.
pay the interest. But
Yeah.
I know the Prop 218 has me concerned though.
Don't take my 5% away. Thank you very much.
Get it.
Sir, can I get your name?
At
for the
least
minute?
not this year, right?
Sir, your name, please?
Okay, so we're
Your name for
gonna,
the Secretary.
we'll grab it,
Okay.
Chris.
Okay,
So we are gonna move on,
Oh, wait.
wait, we got another.
with another comment.
Another 5%.
Thank you, Chairman Beerwagon. Joe Fisher, 6591 Curtola Ranch Road, purchased quite a little water. What is the count of total dollars received with a 5% discount?
It's the total amount, it's a reduction in revenue. So it's about between, what do we, 125 and 225,000 a year.
That wasn't the question I asked. What are the checks counted or cashed? Is it $3.5 million? Is it $4 million? Is it $100,000? What is paid upfront to the district?
Oh, like how much cash is coming in from the
Correct.
discounted
Correct.
payments?
Times 20, Joe,
Yeah, I don't.
times 20.
16 million?
No,
No,
150,000 times 20.
So 3 million.
Yeah.
$3 million. Does this district currently invest in short-term bonds, T-bills, the stock market, anything like that that would have a very, very normal rate of return?
Yeah, it's not $3 million or so. The discounts range from about 5,000 or $5 to $5,000. So let's do this. I'm hearing the questions. We're
Yes.
starting to go down a rabbit hole of
We are.
information we weren't prepared
But it's a
for.
good question.
Let's bring it back
Yep.
with the whole item.
The second comment was for this gentleman here, and I'm sorry I spoke up back here. I thought it was a workshop. I didn't realize it was a full-blown meeting, which is why I included my address and name and the fact that I am a ratepayer and also a purchaser of quite a little water to the tune of, I figured up roughly a couple hundred miners inches of water. So this is a significant thing for me. And to this gentleman's point, my quick cowboy math says 17.78% increase without realizing the 5% discount as well, which would have those compounding effects as just like compound interest too.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with her about
About
separating.
separating the
Yeah,
issues. Yes,
separating
I think we have.
because
to do that.
we do have a little more complexity than I thought.
I have a question about the last slide, about the fixed rate and the variable rate, that the fixed rate is the same for my 1 miner's inch as his 200 miner, however much he buys. We pay the exact same fixed rate. And I think that 200, I'm sorry, did you say 200 miner's inches?
If you can hear me on the recording, it's complicated.
Okay, so anyway, so people that are purchasing lots and lots of water are paying the exact same fixed rate as my 1 inch. But pushing that much water puts a lot more stress on our canals and our systems than just, but there's most customers. So I'm just saying, have you considered adjusting your fixed versus variable rates on the bills?
But then on the other hand, it's the time of the ditch tender is the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next, did you have something to add to that one?
Yes, I just wanted to add that we did look at that in the cost of service allocation between fixed and variable costs, and that the proposed rates in our different scenarios take into account reflecting the current fixed versus variable cost of operating the system. So that's why there is a slight uptick in the variable cost per miner's inch relative to the current rate in a greater proportion than the fixed rate. And so the fixed rate isn't going up, fixed
In the
rate
same
is going up
proportion?
by a lower proportion than the miner's inch rate. And that's because we did look at the current costs that the district has on a variable basis versus a fixed basis. So the cost of service is reflecting today's proportionality.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Eric. Let's get some feedback on the escalation factors. The board is aware we built originally our assumption in the model was that most expenditures will increase by a 4% escalation factor year over year. Based off of feedback we heard from the board, we did run scenarios under 5 and 6%. So what would the board like to do related to the escalation factor? Are you interested in increasing it or leaving it at 4%?
I think we should leave it at 4%, because the rest is just purely speculation, and we can play if games forever. But I think we have seen high inflation. I think we're coming back into a more normal inflationary rate. And just to what the gentleman said earlier, hopefully it comes back tonight even lower. But let's leave it at 4, because it is purely speculative. None of us has a crystal ball, even though some of us are amateur financiers or.
Well, I'm curious though, Brad, and maybe Jen, you can answer this, because those inflation numbers, and I don't disagree with you, okay? Just let me say that. But I also am aware that the cost of construction, it far exceed 4%.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, the cost of
And so
construction
it's like
projects
that
coming in.
inflation rate,
Yeah.
if, it's like if you take into groceries or you take into fuel or you don't take it in. And I mean, it's like, it is like complicated. And it isn't just really truly one rate. And we have to pay extraordinary amounts and increases every year on our equipment and all of the O&M as well as our CIP stuff. So I don't know that 4% is the right number, but I don't know it's the wrong number either. But I'm just saying that it is, what we pay is different than what you pay at the grocery store for, if you're looking at inflation.
It's your appetite. It's the board's appetite for risk. I don't think there
Yeah.
is an exact answer to what the escalation.
What's your appetite, Earl?
Are we set in stone with this rate study? If we picked 4%, 8% tonight, and we find out 6 months from now that things are getting much better or much worse, do we have a mechanism to correct at that point in time?
No.
Not the price increases. We can't adjust.
You'd have to go back through the Prop 218 process.
Yeah.
You'd have to go back through noticing and all that. You could not include a rate increase, but you can't go back and adjust you'd have to adopt 2 rate schedules. But with I don't know what you would tie it to.
Could we, I think I asked this one of our prior meetings, if we figured 4.5% or whatever, and we find out that, inflation is less, our costs are less. Well, for that year, we could, as a board and policy, decide that we're not going to go with a 12% increase that year. We're going to go with an 8% increase to adjust for the lower inflation that we were seeing. Is that true, that we can lower the rate for a period of time if we see that the trend is there?
You could. Yes, the board could do that. I think so. My recommendation is to go with the 4%.
Uh-huh.
You can always, we have methods, we can adjust budgets, and at the end of the day, if inflation is a runaway train, we could restart the Prop 218 process. I don't know that with the proposed rate increases even under a 4% escalation, they are fairly significant. My recommendation would be to stick with the lower 4%.
Well, I tend to agree. I
Okay.
mean, that's kind of where I'm at, but
So
I just
I'm
want to
gonna,
see what kind of wiggle room we had on either end of that spectrum.
we can lower, but we can't raise.
Correct.
So I'm good with the 4%, although I don't think it's gonna happen. I think CPI is so much different than
Mhm.
what we're
Than what's
experiencing
real.
from the construction end.
Mhm.
But then I'm also going to say that I want to go a little higher on the CIP
Mhm.
percentage because that gives us a little more flexibility
Mhm.
and we're gonna need it.
Mhm.
So I didn't realize, I did realize, but I was thinking 12.5 would be the upper part, but you actually went higher on the estimate. I'm just not willing to go any higher, but
Right.
right, okay.
Mhm.
But it just gives us a little more flexibility.
Right.
Do we have a general consensus head nod on the 4%
About the
escalation
4%.
factor?
Or let's, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess so.
Okay. Okay. So now I think the big question is where is there any consensus to be achieved on the high CIP scenario or the low CIP scenario?
12
I'm
and a
really
half.
concerned
Who wants to
that
go
we have a
first?
lot of boogeymen. I'm afraid that we have a lot of issues that we're facing. And that's part of my in the weeds questions tonight that I've been asking is if we have something fail significantly, I think it's gonna cost us a lot of money in the long run.
Mhm.
And if we happen to have 4 things that are bad this year and also it becomes 8 next year, how do we take care of that without shutting down certain canals or certain services and stuff like that? I think we need to be a little bit higher on the CIP just to make sure we're covered for that. For FERC coming at us. Look what we just had with Scott's Flat.
What's your figure? 12.5, 15.5?
Well, it's what was in the cost of service study. I mean.
Well, you did a 15.5.
I thought we
I'm-
stopped at 12.
No,
I'm
we
not-
had-
I don't think I'm comfortable with a lower one, but
Let me get back and look at it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not comfortable with the lower one. I want option 3. And I've said it before, and because this is there are the 60 customers that we talked about. This hurts disproportionately to anyone else. And this is very, very injurious to agriculture. And if we cannot figure out a way to protect agriculture, I do not even like the low one. And I recognize that a lot of these costs are not agency costs. A lot of these are state and federal bureaucracies have imposed these costs upon the agency. And I do appreciate that these aren't things, they're not entirely things that we want to do, but some of them we are reinforced to do. So if we're to push, I think you could get me on the low, just because I acknowledge that there are expenses that we're gonna have to cover.
What was it?
Reluctantly, I would say I would reluctantly vote for the low,
Oh,
but
was that-
we're still a push.
Yeah, we're not formally voting. I'm trying to.
I understand.
Yeah.
No, we're trying to build a consensus.
So you both consensus.
Well, I'm clearly for this same reasons that what Earl stated is, this doesn't really take, even the high CIP does not take into account those unknowns, which we know are sitting out there. And as well as the flume of doom, as we like to call it, and Scott's Flat spillway, and who else knows? And so, yeah, I'm very much in favor of the high CIP. And I'm concerned for the impact on agriculture. I truly am. I'm not without compassion for that. And yet I think that, like with everything, people adjust what they do to compensate for the changes in whatever. I mean, you know, I was talking to someone the other day and there's a farmer that I know in my division who wasn't making any money with one crop and pulled it all out and went to another crop. And I'll be darned if he's not doing really, really great. And he uses less water. So, you know, I think that and I'm not oversimplifying it. That's okay. But I just think that like everything in life, we make adjustments and we have to protect the district. We have to protect our resources. We have to protect our infrastructure. And sadly, the only way is with money. So I'm a high CIP person.
Okay, that leaves me to muddy the waters, right?
Well, wait, Rich hasn't said.
No, Rich hasn't jumped in
Rich
yet.
hasn't said.
No, I said earlier, the 12.5, you know, having farmed through 3 droughts, major droughts, and have had to adapt paying $45 an acre foot one year and $450 an acre foot the next. Farmers are resilient, but only to a point.
Right.
But boy, we need water. And if we can't serve water to our farmers or ranchers at the lower CIP, what good are we? That's my, you know, I'm going to have to adapt. We've already adapted with the pond, saves a lot of water on micro pond. And we can use less and we can farm more. Our productivity's gone up. I've seen guys who are pasture guys now, they have almonds. Yeah, that's their choice, but it's a higher value crop. So we're going to have to find higher value crops and adapt.
If we cut off all the water, we're gonna raise the fire. We raise the fire rates. No one's gonna be able to afford to be here
Yeah,
anyway.
we have to deliver water.
That's what we have to do, and I'm nervous about the.
Yeah, at least gives
The
the
infrastructure.
farmers and ranchers a chance. Now, if I had my druthers, I'd tell this, like Brad, I'd tell the state to
Right.
take this job and shove it. But we can't do that.
Gonna muddy the
Okay,
waters?
so I'm gonna muddy the waters, yeah. So I'm caught on both sides of this issue, but having been there in 16 and 17, when we looked at the numbers, at that time already, I was in favor of 10%, and we went with 5 and 6 for a number of years, and so I don't see any way around. Although I'm sympathetic as an ag producer my entire life, and having been able to cope with it, I'm leaning towards the 12% also. Yeah.
Okay, then the last point of discussion is, according to the schedule, we would be, if everything falls in line, and this is if there is a lot of printing and mailing that has to be done, rates would be effective July 1st. As the board is aware, billing goes out very soon for the start of the year for April 15th. There is treated water is okay. We can pick a date and implement it, you know, on a monthly billing cycle, and it's not difficult. With raw water, it can be extremely challenging. If you do there's 2 options the board has. You can do a delayed start or implementation of any bill increase, or you can send a supplemental bill partway through the season.
And we all love those.
Now, my recommendation is to not do the supplemental bill.
I agree.
Right.
Okay, so but this does reduce your revenue collected.
So we would not collect
You wouldn't be hitting it till the next irrigation
next
season.
year. Yeah. And that's another.
Well, then, so
sticky
we'd
wicket.
be charging treated water customers, whatever it is,
Yeah, and I do
12%.
need to have some further discussions with
And
legal counsel about it, but I just, in general, the supplemental bills are challenging, so I will continue to investigate that. Does that work?
A lot of people have already set their budget for the year to get that supplemental is a problem.
It also is very challenging for administration of it. It's really, really messy. We've done it in the past, isn't that correct? Yeah, we have done it one time in the past.
What, the supplemental?
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't we do some in during the drought year? During the drought year, we had one.
Yeah, in 2019, there was a supplemental bill.
Yeah, I was shocked.
Okay,
Those for the PG&E water.
I think so, yeah.
did I cover them all?
That's right.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to add?
I did have, excuse me, President Wagon. I did have one thing I had forgot to mention. Was able to have a quick sidebar with Aurora. There's a couple of things we need to discuss further amongst staff is that if we don't do the supplemental bill, does that compound any increase in 2027? We need to look at that. And then the second thing is that she will be sending out the bills for this coming irrigation season next week. And so because of that, there will not be time to bring a rule change regarding the 5% discount. So the 5% discount still will stand for this current season.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that,
Okay.
based on our conversation today. Yeah,
Okay.
and the fact that it's been on the books for.
I like the idea of taking that extra 3 million and then socking it away in a 90-day CD and see what we can do with it.
I don't want the public to get overly confused about that. So, okay,
Okay,
all right.
all right. Anybody, anything else?
Sounds like
Sounds like,
we have a plan to go forward.
we do.
is what it sounds.
what's that? Oh, yes, I was gonna adjourn the meeting. It's a workshop. Okay, so general manager's report, anything else?
No, nothing else to report. At this time, we did not prepare a water supply update, but as the board is aware, we've been getting great snow. So that has been very good. I anticipate the March snow survey to be amazing.
How much did we get at Bowman?
Oh, gosh,
How much snow? Our waterman's not here.
7 feet.
7 feet at Bowman. Oh, my goodness.
My son wants to go skiing. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Board members reports, anything?
No,
No?
not at this time.
Two small things.
Sure.
One is I appreciate the work being done by staff on Tyler, especially the memo field, so I can figure out what's going on with what. So I really appreciate that. Don't ask Jen a million questions that way. And I'd also like to thank Jen and staff for bringing the meeting to Placer County.
Yep.
That's very nice.
You're here. Mr. Fowler.
Nothing to
Any
report.
And I have no report. So with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today, participating in the process.